Well, hello, Mr. Deer. It seems you're coming to my garden early this year.
So it seems like for the last couple of years we have had issues with deer getting into the garden, eating down these blackberries. I used to have 2 really good rows of thornless blackberries that we had here in the garden, and it seems like the last couple of years the deer have taken a liking to the leaves and are just chewing these leaves down. To the vines were almost nothing. And it's really killed a lot of the vines back. And this year I only have one vine that's putting out leaves, and it's in its 2nd year, because if you don't know, blackberries take 2 years to produce fruit. So it's your 2nd year vines that produce the fruit. And so I've got one vine that survived this deer onslaught the last couple of years, and it's producing leaves, and it's going to produce fruit this year if I can protect it. And the young leaves are now coming out, and so the deer are going to be all up in this. So the garden, every year it's like the Thunderdome. There's going to be lots of casualties. There are going to be lots of successes as well. And I'm at a point in my gardening life, my gardening career, that I have more successes than failures. But still, I have failures. I know a lot of people who get involved with this, and they get so depressed because of the amount of failures they have at first, especially. And I just tell people, hey, listen, this is part of the game. If you're not capable of doing battle with the elements, if you don't have the intestinal fortitude to suit up this, coat of armor, and to wield a sword, and to do what's necessary in order to protect your food, I'm sorry, you're just not going to do well. It's in every year it's going to be a battle. Just know that. Our ancestors had no problem with doing the things that needed to be done in order to, make sure they had a food crop every year, whether it was livestock or, whether it was chickens or whether it was gardening or, whatever they were growing, they had no qualms. They didn't even think twice about, doing what was necessary to protect their food. But see, you and I have seen way too many Disney movies, and that's not life. Life is not some giant green M&M. You have to do hard things, especially when it comes to homesteading. So let's just talk about these things here. I bought these last year thinking, and you've probably seen these things all over the internet if you're like me, and they are basically set for tripwires, and you can put shotgun shells in here or loud noise thing makers. The shotgun shells are cheaper, but they want to sell you these other loud noise maker thingies. And they do work. They do work for a time. However, there's a couple big downfalls. If you haven't bought these yet, people are buying these for security reasons. I bought these for deer because the deer were coming into my garden, and I wanted to keep them on edge. And so I bought a couple of these things, and I hooked them up to spider wire, so that spider wire fishing line. And they did okay for a while. They do work. However, the internal springs here, which this thing could actually disassemble and you can take it apart, the springs do not last. The springs will compress, and you can't get these strikers to hit these shotgun shells hard enough for them to go off. I didn't try their expensive noisemaker things. I just tried shotgun shells. And, I tried various types of shotgun shells because some have harder primers than others, and some work better than others. But the springs over time will compress to a point where they don't hit anything hard enough. The other thing, these do work. The deer will use them. However, these things, a lot of times the deer will get tangled into the lines, and they will run off and drag your line who knows where. And if it's not anchored down really good, like I had these pieces of rebar that this spider wire was attached to, and they just took off and they pulled the rebar out of the ground and just took off with it. I'm like, where did my rebar go? And usually I find it because my garden is fenced in all the way around, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, I'll just look around. I found the rebar and I just stuck it back in and, hooked it back up again. And I tied these to the spider wire. So the spider wire was tied to the rebar. And so I didn't lose the pins. But then one day I came out here and the rebar was, for one of them, I have a couple set up. The rebar for one of them was just gone. It disappeared. And I'm like, did the deer run off with my rebar? What in the world? I mean, usually they run as far, they get tangled up in it, and they run as far as the fence line, they jump over the fence, and then the rebar is there because they become untangled, and the rebar is just there, and I can, find the rebar, which is tied to the spider wire, which is tied to the pin, and I find it and I reset it up. But this last summer, one of the deer hit that spider wire, got tangled up, and then just took off with the rebar. And I can't find it anywhere. It's just gone. So that's kind of where I'm at. These things do work. However, the deer get tangled up in them and they will run off with them. And it's not like as simple as hitting a tripwire and then, it goes off and they get scared and they run away. No, they're dumb animals. They get tangled up in them. And so what I had to start, and another thing, I'll tell you this, the deer will become wise to where these are at, and they'll start to go around them. They'll start to gum in really slowly and probe until they hit something because they can't see the spider wire. All they can do is feel it. And so they set these off a number of times before they finally realize, okay, we're figuring this out, and they're going to probe and see where the spider wire is. And so what I had to do is I had to set up spider wire like, Mission Impossible lasers all across my garden so that they never got used to where these things were going to be and they didn't know which ones were going to set off a loud bang or not. And that helped. But even then, they began to get wise to that. They began to be like, Tom Cruise, in Mission Impossible, and, avoiding the lasers and doing limbo, whatever it's called, to get past my spider wires. I don't know. Guys, the only thing that really works with getting deer out of the garden is bullets. And if you're, and they learn real quick, oh, we were all going to a party at the garden and, what's his name? He didn't come back up from the party. There was a loud bang and all of a sudden he was gone and we all took off running and we haven't seen him since. Man, we better not go over there again. It happened, last week to such and such too, and finally the deer get the point that it's not a safe place to be in the garden. And that's really the only thing that's going to deter your garden. And again, you got to be willing to get past the Disneyfication that you have been programmed with and do the hard things that require you to come away with some food. And it does sometimes require, there's groundhogs. I got different things, groundhogs and possums, and there's a armadillo that keeps coming in over that way. And I see him at night sometimes. And it's like you have to go eventually, because they'll come in here and they will root and they will tear up your garden. And the only thing that's going to stop it is you putting a bullet through them. Basically, you can't ask nicely. Please don't eat my plants. Please go somewhere else. Go please to find go find a neighbor's garden to mess with. They're not going to listen to you. The only way you can get the point across is with, 5.56 or 7.62 or 9mm or 22 or those are the points that they understand. And you've got to be willing to do the hard work. Anyway, so if you've seen these things around anywhere, let me know in the comments below. It's that time of year. I'm getting my garden ready. I'm just about ready to get stuff planted, putting down my tarps, figuring out what I'm going to grow this year. Got everything basically lined out. I've been doing this enough years now that I know to grow what you eat, and I know what I eat. I know what my kids eat. And so I have a pretty good idea about what I'm going to grow every year, where I'm going to put it, and I've got a routine going. And I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, and just try to be encouraged. The more failures you have, the more successes you will have later, because it's going to teach you different ways not to do things. It's going to teach you what works, what doesn't work. But this would be a good year to make sure you're putting in a garden and getting that stuff ready right now. The leaves are not on the trees yet, but they're going to be here shortly. It's basically spring, and while we got a couple cold days right now, the warmer weather is definitely coming. The mushrooms, the morel mushrooms are already popping. I've already found my first morels. Leave a comment if you found morels, and be sure to send me an email and telling me exactly where you found those morels at. I really appreciate that. And then, you know, let me know what you're planning on growing this year. If you haven't got your seeds yet, our friends over at ClearwaterValleyFarms.com have some seeds for sale. They have a seed pack that I don't make any money on when I sell it, when they sell it to you. It's the American Homestead Seed Pack, and if you're in the Ozarks, it'll work perfect for you. If you're in most parts of the other parts of the country, it'll probably work really good for you as well. They allowed me to choose a number of seeds that I thought would work really well, that I've had great success with, especially the Popolo and the Achicha, some of my absolute favorites. If you like cilantro, but you don't like the way the cilantro bolts every year, and in the summer, you can get Popolo. It grows about 5 feet tall, and it tastes very similar to cilantro. I'm going to grow a bunch of that this year, and they're selling it in the seed pack that you can find over at ClearwaterValleyFarms.com, and there's a link in the description below where you can check that out. All right, guys, leave a comment below. Let me know if you've seen these things. I'm going to take them down this year. I'll have to do some other things. I always have my motion sensor set up, and I've got some whirlybird fans that we got from some friends over at Hobby Lobby, and I'll show you all those coming up in videos down the road. But get that garden ready, because man, food is important, and it seems like the world is coming after your ability to make food if you're not paying attention. So get that garden ready, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, see you next time on the Homestead. Bye.
Have you ever gone to a health food store and seen all those small bottles of probiotics in your cooler section? Man, can they be pricey. Are you really getting all you need to improve your gut health from those expensive bottles? How viable are they? Most of those products claim to give you between 8 and 15 strains of gut-healthy healing bacteria. Think of each strain of bacteria as a different factory in your gut. Each factory is responsible for breaking down that food in its own way. The more factories you have, the more the food is broken down and the easier the food is absorbed and digested by the body. A 2018 study published by the National Library of Medicine shows that one fermented head of cabbage can produce up to 114 strains of beneficial bacteria. That's a lot more food factories than you're getting from that expensive pill bottle. And that's just cabbage. Imagine the probiotics when you add garlic, onions, pepper, and more to that ferment. PerfectPickler.com and its home fermentation kits provide you with everything you need to get started making your own gut-healthy food factories from the comfort of your own kitchen. PerfectPickler.com even provides a jam-packed recipe book with many of our kits. Visit PerfectPickler.com and start fermenting your own veggies to begin your journey to better gut health. That's PerfectPickler.com.
Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.